Thank you to everybody who listens to the show on a regular basis. Let's see. Anthony says, Swanny, what's your biggest concern for Clemson in the upcoming matchup? You know, it's interesting because I think it's twofold, Anthony, in a lot of respects. One, I think you and maybe sort of one and the same to a degree. But, you know, Clemson lost a lot. Clemson lost a lot offensively. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is the number 1 overall draft pick for a reason. And again, the guy that I don't want to start this year. Travis Etienne was a first-round pick for a reason. And so there's a mix of things, but two that sort of come together to make me collectively nervous. And that is the matchup between Clemson's offensive line and Georgia's defensive line and its effect on DJ Uiagalelei. Like if Tyson Pumachan was 100% healthy and you didn't have to worry about that, then yeah, you know what? I wouldn't feel great running Tyson Pumachan out there any more than I felt great running Zarek Cooper out there at any point during his time at Clemson. But because I think there's just a lot of unknowns, there's a lot of, with Tyson, a lot less opportunity. I don't trust Tyson the way I trust DJ. And DJ still, as you all are very aware, still very much young and inexperienced and new to the game at the collegiate level. But in addition to that offensive line going up against that defensive front, it comes down to, man, what if something happens to DJ? And then at that point, hard to foresee Clemson winning. The other area that concerns me is the running backs. And I think that comes down to the fact that not that you don't have talented players. And it's kind of ironic because it almost feels like everybody that you have there now is more well-known or was more well-known, except for maybe Lynn J. Dixon, was more well-known at this point in their career, maybe even if you rewind back to when they were freshmen, than Travis Etienne was. Like, Etienne was this one-off. Etienne was this, just this other guy that I don't think a lot of people thought would, maybe he'd have a good career. Did you think he'd be better than Wayne Gallman? Did you think he'd be better than Andre Ellington? James Davis? CJ Spiller possibly? Especially if you just talk about running back. Then, I mean, if you talk about running back, he's got to be in your conversation about the greatest running back in Clemson history. With his numbers, he may have to be in the consideration of one of the best running backs in the ACC's history. But I know people were excited about Kobe Pace when he came in, Kobe Pryor back then. I know that Tiger fans are super excited about Will Shipley and Phil Maffa. And even Lynn J. Lynn J didn't, I would say Lynn J jumped off the page, but I remember thinking, man, Clemson's got him like what I would have kind of labeled a scat back, kind of a Mike Bellamy type. Get the ball, get out of the way, let him hit the jets on somebody. And to me, all three of those positions sort of run hand in hand. And so it may all come down to that offensive line, the health of DJ, how successful the running backs are. I mean, all of that. And I know you guys have been bringing up the offensive line quite a bit. And obviously Matt Bockhorst spoke yesterday. We'll hear some of Matt Bockhorst's audio coming up here in a little bit, a little later in the program in hour number 2. But truth be told, that offensive line is probably going to face the best defensive front they'll see in the regular season in the opener. So, like, I think like a lot of you find yourself concerned with the fact that Your quarterback, DJ Uyunglele, isn't an overly experienced guy, but I mean, your offensive line couldn't move the line of scrimmage a year ago. And if they struggled this season, it could be a long. I'm not gonna say it could be a long year. It could be a long year for DJ, though. I mean, you look what happened. Look how Trevor looks without an offensive line. Now, I would certainly expect Clemson's offensive line to look better than what Jacksonville's running out there right now, or at least, and it's kind of comparing apples to oranges, obviously, but because of the level these guys are playing. I mean, every one of those dudes is a pro, and they would certainly start at Clemson. I'm not trying to say that. It's just kind of the nature of the beast with the collegiate game versus the professional game. And I think that would be my big concern. I think that would be the big concern. Esley says, I hope DJ's practicing throwing the ball softer. That's a reference back to what was that late last week or 2 weeks ago? The comments that who put those out, Esley? Was that Cowherd? Was that Colin that said that? Who said that about him? I'll be honest with you. All the articles, all the audio, everything's sort of blending together for me on that front. But yeah, it was like talking about what DJ does poorly or criticism. Blah, blah, blah. I tell you, he just throws the ball so hard. He's a hard thrower. Thanks. That was Cowherd. It was Cowherd. Good. Look at there. Lowell, the producer. The producer extraordinaire says, in his opinion, the biggest concern for both teams is the offensive line. Both defensive fronts are monstrous. They are, and it would appear that Clemson is getting healthier, right? I mean, you got Justin Foster coming back. We heard from him yesterday. We'll save some of Foster's audio for tomorrow. By the way, Clemson has no availability today, availability tomorrow up in Tiger Town. The last availability of the week before game week. But, you got Justin Foster coming back after sort of retiring for a little while, dealing with the COVID-19 issues, to coming back. You've got Xavier Thomas, who dealt with COVID issues and strep throat and just never looked like himself, coming back, streamlining his body and getting ready for the season, in addition to just two mammoth guys in Tyler Davis and Brian Brazil on the interior, KJ Henry, Miles Murphy, Trey Williams, DeMonte Capehart when he's healthy. Man, it must be so much fun. So much fun to be Todd Bates and those guys and be able to watch those dudes, and they are some dudes, go to work, and they've been compared quite a bit. To that 2018 squad, and they've just all sort of sloughed it off and said, "Look, man, we're just trying to be the best us that we can be. We're not trying to be the Power Rangers 2.0. We're just trying to be the best us that we can be." And I think that that's the right mindset to have, because then no matter how many times somebody tries to compare you or how many times maybe your numbers don't stack up, you're like, look, that's not who we are. We're a different group. We're facing different teams. It's a different, it's a totally different ball of wax. Totally different ball of wax. 803-450-0086. Anthony also wants to know, or was Anthony? Yeah, who's my breakout player for Clemson next weekend against Georgia? Like who do I think comes out? Okay, let me get clarifying question. Who do I think has a big performance, or who do I think on Sunday and Monday after Clemson's matchup with Georgia people are talking about? Because those are two different things. Double O checking out the program today. He says, Swanny, I got an orange Ferrari. I park it in my front yard. Well, listen, man, Trevor Lawrence is like that Ferrari. Don't put it in the danger zone. He says Trevor's got no O-line and no D. Yeah, that's the other thing. I was watching a couple of those passes that Jameis Winston threw over the top and the defensive back play, and I thought, man, Trevor's probably picking those dudes apart at practice. Probably looks like $1 million at practice. The biggest performance for Clemson this coming weekend against Georgia. Whew. I'm gonna take DJ out of it. I mean, that's just the easy pick. He gets the ball in his hands every snap and has the opportunity to make more plays than most. So who's gonna make who's gonna have the biggest impact on the game from Clemson's side? You know, in my head, I want to go Justin Ross. Like, I want to believe in like this breakout story, this comeback kid. Like, I want to follow those storylines because I like a good drama. Yeah, just seeing him have a two touchdown performance or something and help lead Clemson to the victory, and just go, man, glad he's back. But if I take DJ out of it, it really does get difficult because I don't think it's going to be the tight ends. As talented as I think Braden Galloway is, Clemson's going to have to convince Swanny. They're going to have to convince Uncle Swanny that the tight end position is going to be a valuable asset. So if I had to go in on it, I don't trust the running backs because I don't really trust Clemson's offensive line at this point. Want to see how they handle Georgia. If they were to go out there and just kind of dominate the line of scrimmage against Georgia, and you were asking this question the following week, I might say, well, it looks like we're having a big running day on the ground. Gonna be a good day for Will Shipley or whoever you want to pick. But I'm gonna go Justin Ross. I'm gonna assume that there's going to be just this little bit of trust, a little extra trust that DJ will have with him. Possibly because of his experience and because he's playing in the slot. You know, he might be a guy that Ross can hit pretty quickly. And he's got some wiggle. You know, kind of reminds you a little bit with the ball in his hands of a Derek Hamilton. Remember they used to call Derek Noodle? Kind of got a little noodle to him. Remember the play he had, I think maybe against SC State at one point in his career where he hit the brakes once, hit the brakes twice, and then went to the end zone. Tiger Chuck chimes in. He says, Swanny, it's going to be Ross. He says, we'll be pass heavy, and they can't cover him. Defensively, look for the ends to have a good day. He said, also think you'll see Landon Sanders have a good tackling day. He should get the opportunity because the safeties will be coming downhill this game. There you go. Tiger Chuck agrees on the Justin Ross thing. And again, I think part of it's comfort. Part of it's his return. Part of it's where he's now going to be playing in that slot, which I think gives him an advantage on the athleticism front. But, you know, the other side of what you got to keep your eye on, I think, with this offense is who else emerges from this group of wideouts. E.J. Williams was coming on pretty strong last season. And you were kind of waiting on Frank Ladson and Joe Ngata, and Ngata's still banged up. Then you got a couple of young guys that you hear mixed in here and there with the, Dakari and Bo Collins. And I love their length. I mean, I think that's a huge deal at the collegiate game, just being able to go up over the top. I mean, if you look at the successful wideouts recently for Clemson, I mean, it's really been those bigger wide receivers that have done so well, and you guys are pointing fingers at me and going, what about Hunter Renfrow, Swanny? What about Sammy Watkins? And those are two solid names. Heck, I'll one up you Amari Rodgers, but I don't know how big Amari Rodgers numbers are a year ago, or Cornell Powell for that matter, if Justin Ross is out there. But I do think that you've seen sort of that trend for Clemson with the Mike Williams of the world, with the T. Higgins of the world, with that 6'4", 6'5" frame that we're beginning to see more and more of, the Justin Rosses of the world, having some of that length to go up and go get it and create a mismatch, not just with the vertical space on the field. Like Martavis Bryant was absurd with that. Like, he's so fast, like maybe the fastest guy on the team, and yet still just this huge target that could really, real high riser. Sort of like got that vertical like a basketball player. But that'll be, I'm telling you, that I think that's where you got to lean in, because you just got to think that Georgia and Clemson, both of those defensive fronts, are going to cause a lot of havoc, and it's going to be tough to run the football. So it ends up being a game where you're throwing it a good bit, and Ross has, I think, an advantage at the slot. Now, if Ross ends up having to move out, to the boundary or something, if he has to play outside, then maybe the whole all bets are off. Then I think it's probably wide open. Now on defense, Lowell says, "How about Trenton Simpson?" Oh, I was thinking about Trenton Simpson yesterday, maybe day after, day before yesterday, one of those 2 days. Day after yesterday's today. I don't think I was thinking about him today, but just kind of, his speed and explosiveness and the way Clemson managed to use Isaiah Simmons. I think he is as close to Isaiah Simmons as we have had. And I'm excited for him because Mike Jones Jr. leaving, to me, just if you say that, if you told me that he's going to play 28 snaps a game, however many, maybe it's more than that, maybe it's 35 snaps a game a year ago with Mike Jones Jr., whatever it ended up being, I think that number almost doubles. I think he's, if the offense runs 90 plays, he might play in 65, 70 of them, maybe more. But Mike Jones Jr. was eating a lot of opportunity there, and I believe he's better than Mike Jones Jr. We'll hit a quick break here on the show that shakes the Southland on a Wednesday afternoon.